Hello and welcome to the National Security Conversation. The Bharatiya Janata Party has once again claimed that it will abrogate Article 370 if re-elected to power, that is. What implications would the abrogation of Article 370 have for Jammu and Kashmir and for the relationship between India and Jammu and Kashmir? And what is the constitutional and economic relationship between New Delhi and Srinagar? To discuss this and more, I have with me in the studio Mr. Wajahat Habibullah. Mr. Habibullah was the chairperson of the National Commission for Minorities, and prior to that, he was the first Chief Information Commissioner of India. He was an officer of the Indian Administrative Service belonging to the Jammu and Kashmir cadre. He also is the author of a much acclaimed book entitled My Kashmir, The Dying of the Light. Welcome to the National Security Conversation, Mr. Habibullah. So if I can begin by asking you about your tenure in Kashmir. In the early 90s, you were the Commissioner for Kashmir Division, which covers all the districts of the valley and 2 districts of Ladakh. What are some of the similarities between the insurgency at that point of time and the sort of insurgency that is creeping in today at this point of time?
Well, the similarities, of course, are that that they were both expressions of disaffection and widespread disaffection. The dissimilarities, I think, are what are more important. The dissimilarities in the two are that at that time it was largely older young men who had become very frustrated with whatever they had been doing, who had raised the gun against the government. It was anger against the government. This time, the disturbing factor is that this includes children, very young people, and it has gone very deep among them. And it is amounting not only to anger and frustration with the government, but with the whole concept of their being part of India, a kind of hatred, a growing hatred. That is what is extremely disturbing.
Right. May I also ask you about the exile of the Kashmiri Pandits from the Kashmir Valley? A lot has been made out about the role played by quote-unquote Governor Jagmohan. Of course, you were the commissioner under Gary Saxena. But if you could say something about what you think happened at that point of time as to why the Pandits had to leave.
Well, I was Special Commissioner Anantnag. When the exodus, I wouldn't call it the exile, I would call it the flight, the exodus. It was out of fear and panic. It started in Kashmir, in Srinagar, a little earlier, in the month of January, after loud blaring announcements from the mosques that they must either join the insurgency or they must leave. And if they didn't leave, then there would be grave consequences, and there were grave consequences.
Right.
When I was in Anantnag, Special Commissioner Anantnag, also, then the flight took place from Anantnag, and suddenly one day I was staying in the dark along with my wife. A huge group of people from Nai Basti in Anantnag had landed up at my gates and wanted to see me, and then accused me of actually encouraging the Kashmiri Pandits to flee and that I should reassure them. Basically what happened was that there was an outright feeling of insecurity among all the Kashmiri Pandits. And that is what brought this about. That is why I'm saying it's a failure of the administration. I had recommended certain steps to be taken, which were not taken, unfortunately. But the fact is that what needed to be done was the Kashmiri Pandits needed to be reassured that they were safe. There was nothing that we would allow them to happen. Instead of saying that, well, they can move into refugee camps inside the valley. Well, that was what was announced. And if you announce that, you yourself can judge. Does that add to your reassurance, or does it make you even more uncertain? So the problem was, in fact, that. And now also, the way out is reassurance.
Right.
Why is it not understood by people that that is all that a people wants? If I was in a place which is ridden with rioting, I would want to take my family to a safer place. And unless I can receive a reassurance that no, you're perfectly safe, nothing is going to happen to you here, and we are there to guarantee it, and you have confidence in me, in the administration, and say, yes, this administration will stand by me, then why will I stay? I mean, it's a simple question.
Mr. Wajahuddin, you said that the administration failed in ensuring that the Kashmiri Pandits had a certain amount of physical security given to them. Did the administration encourage the Kashmiri Pandits to leave the valley? Because a charge has been made out, often by the Kashmiri separatists.
Well, you see, also, you can say in a way, if I can't reassure you, then I can say that, well, it will be probably better for you for the time being if you go to Jammu. And then after, when the matter is settled, then you can come back. That, I'm afraid, is what some people, some colleagues in the administration actually said, because the administration had in fact broken down. It had broken down almost completely. I was telling you that I was running the administration from the dark bungalow in Anantnag. That is what I had been reduced to. I could not even go to they had no office to go to.
So at that point of time, this was a smart policy to undertake. That is to encourage the Kashmiri Pandits to leave for Jammu and stay in camps until things are better in the valley and then come back.
No. The smarter thing, and then George Fernandes visited Kashmir several times when I was Special Commissioner in Anantnag. And what I had suggested to him that let us try and reassure the people. That is what we must do. So instead of saying that no, instead of surrendering before the militants, one had to stand up.
Absolutely.
And say, no, I am there to help you, and I will see that everything is done to help you. That is what needed to be done. And I had the support, when I was telling you the Nai Basti people who came to me, they had come to me to say, please reassure them that we are there for them. We will do whatever they need to help them. That is what the Kashmiri Pandits would have needed, surely. Had they been given that reassurance, then things may have been different. I can't say, of course, because now that's in hindsight. And obviously, I was party to the errors that were made also. So am I trying to justify myself? I don't know. But I did recommend that we should hold out reassurances, and the means that they could be held out I had suggested, but those were not held out.
Mr. Habibullah, you wrote in the Seminar magazine last year, as the National Conference leader, Sheikh Abdullah faced a clear choice. He could join a Muslim nation whose leadership would surely be Punjabi, a people the Kashmiris despised and who were unlikely to respect the distinct religious tradition identity of Kashmiris. Alternatively, he could join a secular state where Kashmiris would be free to live a life of their own choosing. And the Kashmiris, Sheikh Abdullah, chose India. How did Kashmir change from this attitude towards India in 1947 to being completely anti-India, at least in South Kashmir today? What happened?
Well, the trigger came initially, the agitation launched by the Hindu Mahasabha against the idea of giving any special status to Kashmir. Now that was a reassurance that Sheikh Abdullah had sought and got in the 1952 agreement, Delhi agreement with Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And this was the reassurance on which, you see, the movement in J&K was not part of the national movement. It was a movement against the Maharaja, which had then joined up with the national movement.
That's right.
So now, the Maharaja was a Punjabi. He had been a grandee. His family had been grandees of the Sikh kingdom of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Before that, they were ruled by the Sikhs. And so they felt that they had been ruled by the Punjabis for long enough, and they did not want to be ruled by the Punjabis again, which is what they saw Pakistan as becoming. Because there had been a lot of relationship between Amritsar, Lahore, and Srinagar. And as you know, the access into the valley was through the Punjab.
That's right.
Because this present road was not there at all. So when you take that all into consideration, the fact is that when they became part of India, they felt, and Sheikh Abdullah felt, certainly he said so to Joseph Corbell in his conversations with him as to why he'd opted this way, because he also felt that something which has resonance today, that partition was the only way out for Kashmir, which meant the area which was closer, they spoke the Punjabi language, which was the mountain region of what we call Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and Pakistan is called Azad Kashmir. Let us call it Pakistan administered Kashmir. That area, the people were generally rather pro-Pakistan. Not the people here. The people here were ardent followers of Sheikh Abdullah, and because of the fact that he played on their national feeling. Now, that national feeling on which Sheikh Abdullah had played to make them accede to India, that national feeling, unfortunately, has been badly challenged.
I think that's a very so in some ways this is a problem of symbols, as it were. So the National Conference under Sheikh Abdullah stood for a certain symbolism, and that symbolism has been somehow done away with in the current milieu. Let me also bring your attention to the administrative relationship between India and Jammu and Kashmir in the context of Article 370 and Article 35A. How do you describe the special relationship between India and Jammu and Kashmir in the context of these two?
Well, as you know, the 370 amendments have been brought to 370 and to the Constitution of J&K itself so many times that now there's really no difference between the way that between the administrative relationship between the government of J&K and the government of India, as there is between the government of India and other states. The only special status really is that the state government there has a lot of a lot of flexibility in its functioning, which maybe other state governments don't have. But in practice, that is really not there. Why? Because for years, the elections in J&K were badly rigged, which they could not have been to that extent in any other part of India. And that is because there was no election commission. It did not come under the Supreme Court of India. These only came in with the amendments to the law that happened in Sadiq Sahib's time. That's much after independence. But the practice, the malpractice you can call it, had already crept in. And I do know that as recently as 2002, when I was speaking to Chief Election Commissioner Lingdo, he said we treated Kashmir separately because of security considerations. Security has never been the guiding principle of the relationship between any other state and the government of India. Never. It has been the guiding principle, certainly since 1963, the Hazratbal crisis, in the relationship between the government of India and the government of J&K.
You talked about rigging of elections before 2002, but this was done at the behest of New Delhi and to help certain people in Srinagar.
New Delhi was party to it, obviously, up to 1977. I can talk of that. Certainly, I was Deputy Commissioner of Srinagar in 1977, but after that, New Delhi had very little role to play in how the elections were actually held. As I mentioned to you, the Election Commission was not doing the rigging.
That's right, of course not.
The rigging was being done there by the local administration.
And there is also the charge of the security forces.
And that also partly answers your first question to me, that why did this change into this kind of different anti-Indian feeling which exists now? Because the people of the state blamed the government of India.
That's right.
Although the rigging was done by whom? The officials in the state government. I was a person from the government of India, certainly, and if you ask the Kashmiris, they will tell you themselves that I was not responsible for the rigging. In 1977, when I was Deputy Commissioner, many people will tell you that it was a free and fair election. I will tell you it was not fully free and fair. Why?
How was the rigging done?
Because there was intervention at junior levels of the police, of the Patwari level, of the school teachers, at that level. There it was not the way that it should have been. In 2002, certainly, the elections were probably the best that had ever been before, but unfortunately, hardly anyone took part. A large section of the political leadership didn't take part. So now, therefore, democracy was not really real in Jammu and Kashmir, and particularly in the valley, in Kashmir Valley, which resulted in the present consequences. And my take is that please, if you make democracy real for the people of Kashmir, then that is Azadi.
By arguing that the local officials were actually doing the rigging in the elections in Jammu and Kashmir, you're actually absolving the government of India of any wrongdoing in the malpractices that were conducted during the elections.
The government of India didn't know about it. The government of India, even the election commission, as I told you by Mr. Lingdo's own admission, simply looked away. Why? Because there was a suspicion that those who are opposing the government are in fact pro-Pakistan. That, in fact, I can pledge for the fact that it is not true.
The 1984 election is widely seen to be as a rigged 87. What do you think of that? Was that a rigged election according to you?
Well, I wasn't there at that time. When I went back to Kashmir in 1990, and I went into it. And then, of course, it has been, the election of Amira Kadal has been widely written upon by Bose and so on, with great details. A number of these young people, Yasin Malik and others, were actually polling officers and polling agents in that election in Amira Kadal.
Sayyid Salahuddin.
Salahuddin was, of course, a candidate. They were in Amira Kadal. They will tell you that yes, that election was badly rigged. But I could not find the similar evidence for other constituencies. So if I was asked for an assessment, and this is only a guess because I cannot establish it through law, then I would say that in about 10 constituencies there was fiddling. Unfortunately, the rigging of that election has been openly admitted by none other than the governor of J&K himself, who dismissed the assembly on grounds of rigging. So you don't need to seek any confirmation from me or anyone else. The governor of the state has confirmed it.
Going back to what the BJP has been saying about Article 370, is it, technically speaking, can Article 370 be abrogated?
If you abrogate it, that means that there is no other clause governing the accession of J&K to India. There is no other clause. There are various clauses, 371A, a number in other states, which actually govern the relationship of different states as they're integrated into India.
Right.
And 370 is the one which lays down the terms under which J&K is integrated into the state of India, into the Indian Union. You abrogate it, and then the state of J&K is no longer under the constitution a part of India. I mean, that is a rather foolish thing to do.
But if you create a constituent assembly in Jammu and Kashmir, and if that constituent assembly holds that Article 370 needn't be there.
So what you need to do is to think in terms of amendment to Article 370. If the Constituent Assembly also, you create a Constituent Assembly, and the Constituent Assembly withdraws Article 370. And that is an argument whether you need a Constituent Assembly for that, or whether under the Constitution of India you simply need a constitutional amendment. But that is a term that has been argued by lawyers, and we need not get into it here. But what I'm talking in terms of it, whether you have it through a Constituent Assembly or through the amendment to the Constitution, one can talk in terms of amendment to the Constitution, to Article 370. But Article 370 was brought into the Constitution because the leader, it was the terms that governed the accession of the state to India. Therefore, it was arrived at by an agreement between the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister speaking for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. So all I would say is, even if you think in terms of withdrawing, and I would agree that there are a number of failings in Article 370, but if you wish to amend it, then it is the people of the state who must wish to amend it. So their view has to first be taken into consideration before you move in that direction of amendment.
So you are saying categorically that if Article 370 is abrogated, then there will be a problem between in the relationship between Indian Union and
In the
state of Jammu,
constitutional
as far as
relationship.
the constitutional relationship. So it is probably from a legal point of view, from a constitutional point of view, it is not a desirable thing to do. But from a political point of view, how do you look at it?
Now, from a political point of view also, what should be the objective of your political point of view? The objective of your political, let us not go into party politics. The objective of your political point of view has to be that you must make the people of that state feel that they are Indians with every right and every obligation, which covers every other citizen of India. I think you will agree with me that that must be the objective.
That must be the objective, but they want to also have that unique identity.
No, but therefore, and every other state likes that. Do the Gujaratis not like a unique identity? Do the Marathas not want a unique identity? Do the Bengalis not say very vocally asking for their own unique identity? So,
the Kashmiri say that we acceded to India under special circumstances.
that is right. So that is why I'm saying that if they acceded to India, then they have to be taken into consideration. Now, don't start putting the argument before you go to them and say that now we think that 370 is not serving your purpose, not serving anybody's purpose. What do you think? Then you enter into a conversation, you enter into a dialogue. You will come, and how do you enter into that dialogue? We have the infrastructure, we have a democratic structure. So what is the difficulty? Right. Through that process, through panchayats, through state assembly, parliament elections, and then debate, you will be able to come to a conclusion. What is so difficult about it? We have all the answers.
Right. Wadar Sahab, you mentioned the 1952 Delhi Agreement. How significant are the 1952 Delhi Agreement and the dismissal of the Sheikh government in 1953 in the constitutional relationship between India and Jammu and Kashmir?
You see, if there's one man who could have been credited with actually having brought about the accession of J&K to India, that one man would be Sheikh Abdullah. So the movement of 1953, the risk of being thought of as rude to, my seniors and the wisest people who led the country at that time, it was a stupid move. And it alienated the Kashmiris. It completely sullied the relationship between the government of India and the government of J&K, and has been the source of this feeling which you mentioned just now. The Kashmiris feel that they are something different, that they are not Indian like anybody else.
Right. Wadar Sahab, let's come to the 1974 agreement. In the seminar article that I just referred to, you wrote last year that the Sheikh finally returned to power in February 1975 after November 1974 settlement with Prime Minister Indira Gandhi under the Indira Sheikh Accord. This accord was the best option open to the Sheikh in keeping with his aspirations for liberty. But it is to this day looked upon by Kashmiris as a betrayal. Why do you say that it was not a betrayal?
Interesting, because just the other day I was in Kashmir, in fact, campaigning in the elections in Pulwama and Sopore, everywhere. And a very senior leader, I won't give you his name, of none other than the National Conference, was telling me that the agreement itself was not what had been agreed to by Sheikh Abdullah. And he gave various reasons as to why Sheikh Sahib could not at that point object to it. And he was raising really 2 points about the restoration of the term Prime Minister and the government and the Sadr-e Riyasat. But that is not really the essence of the agreement. Why was it the best option? Because up to that point, up to 1971 certainly, Pakistan had been supporting the plebiscite front.
Right.
I don't know, these are all no longer state secrets. The money was finding its way, not directly, but through other means. And after 1971, Pakistan stood defeated, followed in 1972 by the Simla Agreement, in which case Sheikh Bhutto had conceded that the future of Jammu and Kashmir is now going to be decided by dialogue between the government of India and the government of Pakistan, which means two things. One, that it was taken out, the two major parties had agreed to take it out of the ambit of the UN. Number two, that this matter would be settled between the governments of India and the government of Pakistan, and so far as the Kashmiris were concerned, the various elements there, they really had no role left. And this was in fact also told when Farooq Sahab was on his way back from England in 1975. After the agreement, when he was way back from England, when he was coming back, he called on Bhutto. And I think it was in 75, but he'll be able to confirm the exact date. But when he was on his way back from England, he was told by Bhutto that whatever settlement you have to make, you now have to make that with India. We can now no longer be of any help. So now what was the option? The option was to gain for the state of J&K the maximum level of autonomy which he could gain, in keeping with his original decision to accede to India, which he could keep for the people of J&K. And therefore, a committee was set up. You remember, Devi Das Thakur, Mirza Afzal Beg committee was set up to go into all the amendments which had mellowed Article 370.
All the presidential orders.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, people don't know about that committee at all because it came up with some recommendations, but that had no impact at all. And the people felt that the government, that Sheikh Abdullah really had entered into this agreement to become the chief minister again. He'd given up on getting for the Kashmiri people their rights. That was not, as I said, the best option. Now, that option was in the agreement, that you review all these laws, which in Sheikh Abdullah's view or in the view of the Kashmiri people had in some way minimized the freedoms which the people of Jammu and Kashmir were guaranteed by the constitution earlier. But Sheikh Mirza Afzal Beg saying to me, each of these laws is of benefit to us. How are we going to get rid of these laws? Do you mean that I should get rid of the Election Commission of India? Do you mean that we should no longer come under the Supreme Court of India? These are the questions that he put to me as a lawyer. So in fact, what the Indira Sheikh Accord had given back the state government the opportunity to review those laws which they felt were unacceptable, but the government of Jammu and Kashmir could not come up with such laws which were unacceptable, because the laws that had been extended to the state were actually those that were acceptable. The only way, and that is why the senior leader of the National Conference is saying it was not quite what it was supposed to be, because it was only in terminology. It is not quite what it was supposed to be.
So personally speaking, you don't think that it is important to restore Article 370 in its original shape and form?
It is not important what I think.
Should it be approached case by case basis?
It is important what the people. If you impair that sense of freedom through abrogation of Article 370, then you are betraying the trust which the people of Jammu and Kashmir have placed in the Constitution of India.
This also applies to the presidential orders that have been implemented since 1952. So if case by cases, each of those orders can be revisited and taken a look at it, if that gives them a sense of freedom, why not?
Yes.
Okay.
But what I said just a little earlier, a sense of freedom will come with the free play of democracy. If it doesn't come overnight by holding a free and fair, it will come in the way that democracy functions. And we have got all the instruments to make democracy real for them as we have for the rest of the country. We are among the foremost democracies in the world, because we guarantee to our people the kind of freedom which few democracies elsewhere guarantee.
Wajad Sahab, you wrote in a paper in 2004 for US Institute of Peace about Kashmiris being corrupted by money. After Abdullah's government was sacked, the Indian government moved to quell discontent by stepping up economic development in the region. In December 1953, India's Planning Commission advanced a loan of $14.9 million to the state government. Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad became Prime Minister with the support of the Indian government. He made no secret of this policy of literally buying the Kashmiris back. The Bakshi tradition, you say, set an unhealthy economic precedent, earning for Kashmiris the contempt of both Indians and Pakistanis as a people who could be traded. For the Kashmiris, this practice only increased their sense of self-loathing and their resentment towards those in power. Does that policy still continue in Kashmir?
Unfortunately, incredibly, every time we face a crisis in Kashmir, the government of India comes up with an announcement of a scheme of, so many crores are going to be spent, so many crores are going to be spent. Why can't we learn our lessons?
Money is not the answer.
Already, this announcing the so many crores is causing a great deal of resentment in the rest of the country, as you know. People say so much money is being spent on them. What are they asking for now? What do they want? Yes, shoot them up, finish them up. What is this rubbish?
In fact, the Jammu and Kashmir received 10% of all central grants given to states over the 2000 and 2016 period, according to a Hindu newspaper article. That clearly is a cause of the frustration that the mainstream Indians have towards Kashmir.
That's right. And it's also a part of the problem there. Because by making the people feel that they can be bought off, you have in fact insulted their self-respect, which is all that they were seeking. Which is all that they were seeking by being part of India. The young Kashmiris are highly educated. Many of them are going abroad or in the rest of the country or in the Middle East or in the US and have done extremely well for themselves. They want to come back and actually invest in the state itself. But the doors are locked. There are inside Kashmir young people who are willing to take on enterprise, but they don't have access to funds or anything else. So now, what is the difficulty? Encourage your own young people to come and to invest in their own state. Relax your rules, make it easier for them. Once they start doing it and they start earning their money and they find that, well, there is no impediment to their prospering within the Indian Union, the other problems will start disappearing. Surely that is logic.
But this argument flies in the face of the traditional argument that give them more economic opportunities, give them more educational opportunities, pump money there and things will get resolved by itself.
Which economic opportunities? Spending money doesn't mean giving economic opportunities. Spending money means something quite different. And now, please ask how was that money spent?
It's one of the most corrupt states in India.
Do I have to say that?
Absolutely.
There's a huge government over there in which most of the people are sitting in the offices with nothing to do except intrigue. And you shouldn't be surprised to know that when these feelings of 1990 were actually smouldering, where were they smouldering? Were they smouldering among the children, as now they are? Were they smouldering among the children? Were they smouldering among the youth? No, they were smouldering in government offices.
And pumping of more money also leads to a terror economy. In fact, you write that as the upheaval exerted its heavy toll on the state's economy, the richest source of income became the threat and use of violence. So more money, more terror economy.
Actually, the money, now the very fact, something that is resented by the people over there, the huge army deployment in that thing. Part of that is also because lots of the economy of the state, the people there, somebody was saying on the television the other day, a political leader, that we will be able to generate the economy. The economy of there is self-generating out of this large deployment of security forces there, because they're spending money, they're spending on building, spending on other things, and there's a lot of money in the state. If you go there's plenty of money circling. The people say that tourism is finished, now the economy is finished. Certainly not. You go to the parks, you go to the gardens, you go to the restaurants, they're all absolutely full. With whom? With local people. So there's money there. The question is, there isn't the self-respect which should have come with that money.
That's right. That's right.
So what is it so difficult to understand this?
You know, I also want to talk a little bit and very briefly about the situation in the 90s and now. You wrote that the principal reason organizations such as Ikhwanul Muslimun, the Hizbul Mujahideen, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed have been able to recruit large numbers despite popular disillusionment with violence is that they offer the best opportunity to make money. But do you think that is changing with the increasing influence of Islam and increasing radicalization in the state of Jammu and Kashmir? Because at a point of time you could tempt people with money, now they are not tempted with money, now they are tempted by, say, a certain kind of radicalization.
The question is that not has it been tempered by that, a reaction to that has been this radicalization, because there has been this group of missionaries and others telling people that because of this money we have become like this. Now if you put this behind you, then we will be able to really gain back our freedom, which in other words what they're arguing for is to gain back our self-respect. That is the answer to your question. So radicalization has been rising. As you pour more of this in, that on the other hand leads to this kind of reaction. Young people talking in terms of martyrdom, seeking martyrdom. Now not money but seeking martyrdom. That again is a major dissimilarity. At that time the movement was actually, it became a proxy war through the use of money. But now it is reverting into a kind of religious war, even more dangerous, because of the radicalization of their society.
That's right. Well, Sahab, this is my last question. And what is your advice to the next government on what can be done vis-a-vis Kashmir to bring it back on track?
My advice would be very simple. Give them real democracy. Now, to do that is not as easy as it sounds.
What does that entail?
Because the society has become already highly corrupted, not in terms necessarily of money, but in terms of its violent
Legitimacy of violence.
predilections. It was a totally non-violent society at one time, which is it will never be again. Its secular fabrics have been shattered. All these things. Now, how do you allow them the free play of democracy without laws like AFSPA and Public Safety Act and so on and so forth, without a strong and well-entrenched police force? So it's not so easy. And are you willing to take that risk? Because it may lead to certain incidents which are certainly not going to be salutary. So, think of it. But in my view, that is now the only way out. Why do I say that? Because India's greatest strength is not her military power, is not her economic might and a rising economic might. All these are there certainly, but that is not our greatest strength. Our greatest strength is our democracy, and we repeatedly fail to cash in on it.
And democracy means negotiations and talks with all kinds of people, including the disillusioned ones.
And it means also RTI, and all that goes into the question of RTI, the right to ask questions, the right to be given answers, transparency and accountability.
Vajasa, wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.